always picked them up out of Travis Air Force Base. And I didn't know what to do, what to say, you know, you can't just say, oh, welcome aboard, you know, have a good day, and it was different. And so a friend of mine said, just follow the troops. And so that I did. When they came on, I saw them coming, and you know, they had in formation. And that's when your heart started tugging at you. And as they came up on the stairs and into the airplane, very seldom did they look at you.
So in the beginning, I perceived a big difference between the troops, among the troops. You could tell when you had a flight full of Army guys, and you could tell the difference between them and, say, Air Force guys, and between them and Marines, or whatever. You could tell what it was. In the beginning, especially the Army, they were brand new kids. They were boys right out of high school or whatever. They were boys. I remember serving coffee sometimes, and I would ask a GI if he would like cream in his coffee, and he'd say, yes, sir, ma'am, because they were so well trained from where they came from, and we picked them up on the West Coast. They stayed on the airplane through all of these stops into Nam. So we would get on at either in Honolulu or Okinawa and get to know these guys. Those first flights, they were so young. They, like me, had never been out of their home state, I don't believe, and here they are going into the wide world, granted Vietnam, but at that time it was fine. We were going to go fight for freedom. We're brave and the whole thing, especially the Army guys. That changed, of course, during the decade of our participation in that war, and the end got not so nice, put it that way.
Well, I remember going in, first of all, it was a beautiful country. I remember that, Cam Ranh Bay and Da Nang and Saigon. We went in about 3 or 4 of them, and it was beautiful, beaches and tropical lush, and so that to me was really interesting. I hadn't seen that before. And again, the guys, a few were veterans going back, and they were much more serious. And the younger ones were like nervous anticipation because they didn't know what was going to happen. And anyway, that's about all I remember about that. You'd open the door and it was hot and humid, and you'd just say goodbye to them and good luck, and you couldn't really say have a nice trip, but you just smiled and said goodbye.
At one point that we took over 2 gentlemen that we spoke to on the airplane quite a bit, and also ran into a couple of times at Clark Air Force Base the first 6 months. We had talked to them at length on the airplane and then saw them again at Clark. And both of these gentlemen flew together, and they were only there for 6 months when they were shot down. And we did not know for 6 or 7 years whether they were alive or not. And we found out that they were in the end. And one of them I actually got a hold of and talked to him, and he had remembered every girl on the airplane, what they looked like, what were they doing, you know, how they were doing. And the other gentleman was Pete Peterson, who ended up being a senator back in Florida, and then he became the first ambassador back to Vietnam.
as a flight attendant on Flying Tigers taking troops to Vietnam, on my first flight from Travis Air Force Base to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, a young soldier engaged me in conversation almost throughout the entire flight. I remember exactly what he looks like, exactly where he was sitting, and right before landing in Anchorage, he told me he wanted me to have something. And he handed me this, his rosary beads. I said, I cannot accept these. You really need to take these with you. They're for you, not for me. He insisted that I take them. I didn't know what to do. I asked my senior flight attendant what I should do. She looked at me and she said, you keep them. He wants to leave something. So I did. I've kept them. And we did write a few times, but then I didn't hear from him again. And I don't know what happened to him, but I've never forgotten him. And I've had these beads for 50 years.